Okay, good afternoon. Uh, Dear students and professors, welcome everybody, and thanks for attending the Dr. Evans Fanoulis conference. Dr. Evans, let me say you, please, if you don't mind, to tell the Evans. I know you like this expression. On behalf of the International Relations Department, I express to you our welcome. Thank you for coming from China to share your knowledge and experience. Specifically, the topic Brexit, challenges for the European Union and worldwide implications that you are going to present. We know it will be very interesting and very useful for understanding the current Europe situation. Indeed, the output of this problem, this question, Brexit obviously, will affect the condition of millions of people in Europe and obviously all around the world. We are sure that your visit to Social Sciences and Humanities Center will be very productive. Indeed, this is going to reinforce the Jiaotong University and the University of Guadalajara academic relations, including the student exchange. Listen, including the student exchange. So, if some of you are interested in China, Europe, and international relations abroad, abroad of Mexico, this is a good opportunity that you are going to have in face in a Zoom. Okay. Well, now I give the word to Professor Villarreal for presenting the academic background of Professor Evans. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Well, today we feel really grateful to have Professor Fanoulis here with us. We are really glad that in our visit to Suzhou, China, to the Xi'an Jiaotong University last April, he accepted our invitation to come to visit the city of Guadalajara and to visit our campus here of social science of the University of Guadalajara. So thank you very much for coming, Evans. Well, I'm going to present a short video of our guest. Dr. Evans Fanoulis is lecturer in international relations at Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University, located, as I said before, in Suzhou, China. He was previously postdoc researcher at Metropolitan University Prague, lecturer in politics at the University of Leicester, and fellow at the Department of Government, University of Essex, where he also did his doctorate. He received training at the European Union Commission and European External Action Service and worked as research officer for the analysis of civil security system in Europe project. His main research interests lie within democracy and populism in Europe, European security governance, European Union-China relations, and post-structuralist international relation theory. He has published a research monograph entitled The Democratic Quality of European Security and Defense Policy between Practices of Governance and Practices of Freedom with Knowledge and is editor of the forthcoming College Handbook of Critical European Studies. Other publications of his include articles in the journals European Security, European Politics and Society, Global Society, Cambridge Review of International Affairs, and Journal of Common Market Studies, as well as book chapters in several edited volumes. So it's an honor for the University of Guadalajara. It's an honor from our department for our BA in International Relations to have you here, Professor Fanoulis. Please feel welcome and thank you very much. You are now in charge.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me. I have to say I'm truly honored by the invitation. I would like to thank first of all both the Department of International Relations and the Department of Pacific Studies for their warm welcome. I'm super happy to be here. It's my first time in Latin American country, and I have to say that I have really enjoyed my time so far. I will give you more or less a brief presentation about the United Kingdom's succession to the European Union and its recent decision to exit from the European Union. I think that I should move there though, so as to make things a bit easier. And we need someone to be able to change. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. First of all, let me say a few words about Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University following their excellent introduction. So the Department of International Relations is a recent department with a focus on the study of China in the world and not only. We're all international faculty, we're a small department, but we grow a lot and quickly. We belong to the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University is in Suzhou in East Asia. East China. East China is the richest region of China, the People's Republic of China. It's really close to Shanghai. It's an international university. We usually call it a Sino-British joint venture. Our students like you, they finish their BA in International Relations. They have also the opportunity to go for a semester abroad. And I really hope that we will be able to send some of our fourth-year students here also, the University of Guadalajara, the Department of International Relations, or the Department of Pacific Studies. I think that what is interesting also, we are really eager to see some of you also to come and study with us as exchange students for a semester also. Also, the department is right now designing two new master programs, the one in international relations and the other in global affairs and international business. So this is my introduction for you. By all means, if you have any questions, feel free to about Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University, or if you really want to experience or you're thinking about it, just ask Nestor for my email, send me an email, then I will do my best to convince you that the best option would be to come to Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University and the Department of International Relations. So, what I'm going to do, is this switched on? Can you hear? This is the most important thing. I have a big voice and it projects well. So, what I'm going to talk, I'm an EU expert. If I can may say so, I think the more modest one is to say that I'm a student of European Union politics. And this is a love that goes back 10 years or 15 years or so. Yeah, 15 years. Unfortunately, this makes me not feel so young, but anyway. Today I would like to talk to you about a very interesting issue, which is what we call Brexit. Brexit is not a real word, it's a neologism, it's a constructed word. It means the exit of the United Kingdom. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start with a small review of the United Kingdom's admission to the European communities in the 1970s. Then I'm going to talk a bit about the UK opt-outs and what is an opt-out. I will continue with the 2016 EU membership referendum. Then I will briefly discuss about British Brexit negotiations. Oh boy, this is a tough cookie because it changes all the time. And then I will talk briefly, I will finish my presentation with the impact of Brexit. So let's start. Thank you. So, the United Kingdom's accession to the European community. So, the UK applied for the first time in 1961. The European community started in 1957, 1958 with the creation of the European Coal and Steel Community. And the European Atomic Energy Community, the Euratom, and the European Economic Community. So 3 communities from late 1950s onwards. So the UK already applied in 1961 for membership. That was vetoed in 1963 and again in 1967 by the French President Charles de Gaulle, the military officer that you see in the photo. The idea on behalf of Charles de Gaulle was that the United Kingdom is not really part of Europe. Right? That was the idea, also because of the United Kingdom being an island, because of its insular policy, and also because of his personal political relationship with the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. That was tempestuous. Just let me put it that way. So the membership, after lots of back and forth and lots of lobbying on behalf of the other member states of the communities, especially the Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, that they were really keen on bringing the United Kingdom in the group, especially Netherlands, because of the trade relationships between the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. They finally managed to convince and daunt the objections of the French government, and membership was granted to the United Kingdom in 1973. The treaty was signed by the Conservative Prime Minister Edward Heath. 2 more countries became member states of the European communities the same year. You will know which ones. Anyone? Another island close to the United Kingdom? Ireland, yes, and Denmark. So all 3 became members of the European communities in 1973. So back to, and I will draw the linkage with what we're experiencing today. Back to these times, we already have objections on behalf of the Labour Party about the membership to the European Economic Communities that resulted in a referendum in the United Kingdom about the accession of the United Kingdom to the European Communities. Membership referendum took place in 1975, and 67% voted to remain in the European Communities. So this is a picture of the European Communities in 1973. As we see, we're talking mostly about Western European countries, with the exception of Spain and Portugal, right? This is also because at that point we had the military units in Spain and Portugal. And let's move to the next slide. So I will take you into deep water already, and we are going to talk about reasons, right? Most of us here are social scientists and political scientists, and we answer why research question. So my research question here is why did and still does the European Union need the United Kingdom? First of all, the United Kingdom had a traditional relationship, a good relationship with the United States of America. That was true for the post-World War II period in Europe and during the Cold War. That is still true about what is happening right now, about today. So there is a good linkage with the United States of America, which is considered to be the superpower of our world today. One of our superpowers, if you want my opinion. At the same time, the United Kingdom was a military power and is still a very considerable military power. Her Majesty's armed forces operate overseas and they deploy a lot. So they are operational and they have lots of experience. They are well equipped, well trained. The United Kingdom has a nuclear capacity. It has a strong naval forces as well as a strong intelligence system, spies. And at the same time, the United Kingdom is a diplomatic power. It is a permanent member state of the United Nations Security Council. And this was important for the European Union. Why? Because every time the United Nations Security Council would convene, then the French and the British ambassadors, they would go back to Brussels and they would update the rest European partners about United Nations negotiations, about United Nations political discussions and dialogue, issues of global governance, etc. So, at the same time, there are historical reasons. And you see the question mark here, and this goes back to this kind of elephant in the room, whether the United Kingdom is part of Europe or not. If we look at history, the United Kingdom has always been part of Europe. That doesn't mean that it was always an amicable relationship. Look, for example, the wars between France and the United Kingdom, between British Empire and the French Empire during the Middle Ages, or think about the Middle Ages, that would be and also think about the two world wars. We do have United Kingdom. The British people has always been part of the European historical lineage. So this is not something that can easily detach from what we call the European history. British politics and British history has always been part of European politics and European history. So this is why this is the question mark, even though this is debated and it has been much more debated nowadays, right? At the same time, at that point, and as I mentioned, in the 1970s we have only 6 countries being members of the European communities: France, Italy, Western Germany, and the Benelux countries. So the smaller countries, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, they thought that bringing in the group the United Kingdom would balance the power of France and Western Germany. Right? So you see here also there are geopolitical reasons behind the accession of the United Kingdom in the European communities in the 1970s. It's also, as one, it's considered to be, colloquially we say that the United Kingdom is one of the big 3, right, in the European Union. The other 2 being the Germany and France. So with a population of 66.02 million people in 2017, and not only that, it's also a financial power, right? Think about Citi, and the banking system of city in London. And last but not least, it's a well-established liberal democracy. And we see that also, I would argue, in the negotiations in the parliament right now when it comes to exiting the European Union. Because when it comes, so for many decades, I would say, for a long period of time, let me put it that way, parliamentary democracy in the United Kingdom has been considered a paradigm of parliamentary democracy when it comes to the parliamentary scrutiny of executive power. And we see that actually in practice with the Brexit negotiations. Let's move to the other side. Thank you. So now, but what about the other side? Why does the United Kingdom need the European Union? Because right now it might be considered one financial, economic power, but it was not always like that. After World War II, the British economy was devastated. So the post-World II financial economic landscape was really, really harsh for the United Kingdom. It wasn't considered, it wouldn't secure prosperity for the British citizens. So getting into the group of the European economic communities, and because of the liberalization of trade that came gradually, that helped enlarge British economy and the British trade. So at the same time, after the Second World War, we entered the period of Cold War. And it was important, in a way, to belong into a group at that period of time. And also a group that would be directly linked to the capitalist bloc. The capitalist bloc with the Western bloc, right? The USA and its allies. So, take into consideration that at this point of history, Germany is divided between Western Germany and Eastern Germany. The United Kingdom wanted to make sure that it is protected, that they would feel secure, right? And they thought that becoming a member state of the European Economic Community and the European communities in general, they would help them secure their country. At the same time, again, we talk about, if we see the coalition from a geopolitical perspective, there was a need not to be isolated in Western Europe. The only other two countries, Spain and Portugal, that were experiencing military units at that point, they were out of the group of the European community. So they thought that these would actually also get them better integrated within the idea of Western Europe, right? And very clearly, very quickly, the British government would see the benefits from trading as a bloc, right? How they would increase the competitiveness of British products worldwide, right? How they could strike better trade agreements with international partners. They saw a great opportunity doing this within the European communities. And we see that much more, in a much more pronounced manner nowadays, how important is, when in trade terms, to be a member state of the European Union, because it's a very powerful trading bloc. And from 1970s, I would say, early 1980s, we see the gradual integration in the single European market that would actually secure even more prosperity for the British citizens, right? Because the single European market is a free trade zone, right? Think about NAFTA, for example, but much more integrated, right? Much more integrated. So the single European market would have the freedom of movement of capital, people, commodities, and services, right? The only case that we're not doing that well in the European Union would be the services. There is a services directive that has taken ages to be transposed by the member state governments, but this is because of domestic politics of the member states. But as I said, when it comes to the other, especially when it comes to freedom of movement for people, when I went to work either in Belgium, because I'm a Greek national, but I'm also a European citizen. And when I went to the United Kingdom to study and work, when I went to Belgium to work, when I went to the Czech Republic to work, the only thing I needed was 2 signatures. In order to go to China to work, I needed to have a visa approval procedure that took 6 months. So there you have it. Financial integration and the merits and how it can impact really our lives on an individual level. So, and at the same time, we talked before about city in London that is like one of the most important financial centers in the world, right? And especially there were lots of European investments, lots of like countries. They channeled foreign direct investments to the British economy and to the British services sector. Think about also education, think about British universities. I'm here partly, I'm a product of British education, but I'm also working for a Sino British university right now, right? So this is part, education is also within the services sector. So, yeah. Now, I talked a bit about 1970s and I want to go on with my historical review, right? These ladies known as Iron Lady, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during most of the 1990s, Margaret Thatcher. So what happened is, in the 1970s, the United Kingdom's economy is still in very bad shape, which means, first of all, it's about employment and low wages at that point. In the 1990s, what we call the EU budget, that time was the community budget, the budget of the European communities, was very much funded by the value-added tax of the member countries. Okay? So everything that was to do, the money that the European communities had to deliver their policies was coming from the VAT of the member countries. And there were lots of complaints on behalf of the United Kingdom about their contributions to this budget, right? And they thought, especially when it comes to common agricultural policy that has been one of the first policies that got supranationalized in the context of the European community. So what happened is that Conservative Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher negotiated what is called the UK rebate in June 1984. What is the rebate? The rebate is a quite complex mechanism for the UK to correct imbalances, to take money back, right, from their contributions to the budget. And in a way, this actually, there was a very lively debate in what is called nowadays the European Council, with the Danish Prime Minister calling Margaret Thatcher names. They were serenading each other at this European Council. It was like Desmond Diamond, the historian of the European Union, has a very interesting few paragraphs about these exchanges between Margaret Thatcher and the Danish Prime Minister. So it was a very vivid debate, but she did win this match, right? So they did establish the UK rebate. So, and let's go to the next slide. So, now, usually what we say when it comes to UK opt-outs, these refer to the status and how the United Kingdom participates in the project of European integration, with specific reference to certain policies of the European Union. An easy way to say the United Kingdom is with one foot in, the other foot out from the European Union. And that's because of the opt-outs. They have opted out, the British government has opted out from essential policies of the European Union, important policies when it comes to the further integration, the deepening of the European integration. So when it comes to the Schengen Agreement, they opt out on everything that has to do with border controls. So with my EU passport, I go from Italy to France, and I don't need to show my passport anymore. If I do the same when it comes to the United Kingdom, there are passport immigration controls, right? Even though I'm in the system. And the same happens with Ireland. Now, and then, so the freedom of movement, when it comes to people, it is a bit compromised in the case of the United Kingdom. Let me put it that way. At the same time, they have opted out from the Economic and Monetary Union. In the Lisbon Treaty, which is, let's say, the establishing bill, the bill establishing the European Union, right? It's a constitutional act, even though it's not a constitution. So there is this article in the treaty that says that member states will create an economic and monetary union with a single currency. It used to be called EQ, nowadays it's called Euro, right? The UK has a permanent opt-out from the Economic and Monetary Union. It says that it will never become a member of the Economic and Monetary Union, and because this also goes back to how they value the power of the British pound, the sterling, right? But also for symbolic reasons, because the British pound is like a nationalist symbol as well for the British people. They also have expressed reservations from the they have opted out from the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU. The Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU, it's a charter that binds the EU institutions when it comes to their obligations towards the EU citizens, right? So, for example, my right to petition the European Parliament, or my right, or it's not only about EU citizens, but also for those that legally reside in the European Union, in a member state of the European Union. For example, if a Mexican citizen legally resides in Italy, he can also, or she can also, make use of the rights that are in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU. Okay? So in this case, let me think about it again. If I want to make a comment to, again, file a complaint against the European Commission, what is called the European Ombudsman, I can still do it because it is a right of mine that is explicitly mentioned in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU. Okay? So, and at the same time, when it comes to the area of freedom, security, and justice, which is the cooperation of the member states of the European Union on legal issues, on judicial issues, on police cooperation, we have Europol in the European Union. You know Interpol? In the European Union, we also have Europol. And again, in this case, we have an opt-out of the United Kingdom from anything that is linked to the Schengen issues, right? The border controls, the border management. So these were the opt-outs, and as you see, there are many. And this is why I said before, the United Kingdom is with the one foot in, the other foot out from the project of European integration. So let's have a quick look at the Brexit timeline that is already outdated, because negotiations are going on nowadays, and they make my life so much more difficult when I prepare a lecture like that. So, it all started, well, it didn't start in June 2016, but for the sake of this presentation, let's say that it all started with the Brexit referendum in 2016, that the British government, there was a referendum, and the British government decided to invoke Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, which is the exit article, right? For the first time in the project of European integration, there is an article in the Constitutional Act of the European Union that predicts a specific procedure to be followed if a member state wants to go out, to get out. Okay? So this article is called Article 50. So, in June 2016, the British people decided, and I will talk more about that, to exit the European Union. In March 2017, we had the proper formal invocation of Article 50 of the Treaty of the European Union by the UK. This was done by, I think, it should be Theresa May. We had a change of leadership. David Cameron was succeeded by Theresa May in the Conservative leadership, and she is now the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So in June 2017, the Prime Minister forms a coalition government with the Democratic Unionist Party. The Democratic Unionist Party is a small party group that represents the Northern Irish citizens that they want and they're interested in maintaining the union, or they are interested in maintaining Northern Ireland as part of the United Kingdom. Let me put it that way, right? And it all makes more sense as we talk. Why it is important, the DUP part. So in November 2018, because as you realize, from the moment that they decided out, there was a negotiation to be made and an agreement to be sealed between the United Kingdom and the 27 remaining member states on how to exit. Okay, so it was about the procedure. So we had this first agreement in 2018 in November that is called, we call the Brexit deal, the proper name is the withdrawal agreement, and this had to pass the British Parliament, right? The House of Commons. In January 2019, the UK Parliament voted and rejected the deal. So in March, and that meant that the British Prime Minister Theresa May, she had to go back to Brussels and renegotiate certain bits and pieces from the withdrawal agreement. And then we had in March 2019 a new parliamentary vote in the United Kingdom that again rejected the deal. And that instead they voted to extend Article 50 until the 30th of June. Because according to Article 50, from the moment that a country decides to officially leave the European Union, it is given 2 years, right, 2 years time to complete the procedure, okay? So it was supposed to take place, the exit in March 2019. You see, March 2017 is the invocation. In March 2019, 2 years, they had to exit. But instead, because of the rejection of the withdrawal agreement in the British Parliament, they voted instead for an extension that was accepted by the European partners until the 30th of June. The UK Parliament votes again and again rejects the deal. So, in April 2019, the EU offers an extension of Article 50 until the 31st of October, and we have also interesting developments in British domestic politics. What happens is Theresa May, the Prime Minister, resigns. And there is a specific procedure within the party of the Conservatives in the United Kingdom about her successor. And her successor is this nice gentleman on the other photo, Boris Johnson, right? Please, I'm not going to do any comments. I will keep it professional and academic. So, in July 2019, Boris Johnson, because he's the leader of the Conservatives, he is also becoming simultaneously the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And in September 2019, there is a UK parliamentary vote to rule out a no-deal Brexit, right? So the idea and this term, no-deal Brexit, I will explain more in the following slides, so do not worry about it. What is the more recent and what has happened last week in Brussels is that Boris Johnson agreed a new deal, a revised deal with the European partners, right, with the 27 member states of the European Union. And it is called the Withdrawal Agreement Bill. He presented it to the UK Parliament last Saturday. What do you think it happened? It got rejected. What a surprise, right? Yeah, I know. So we have now a new procedure, and he was forced by the British Parliament to send in a letter and ask for an extension, a new extension, 3 more months until the end of 2019. Okay? And at the same time, he's trying to persuade the different political parties and political groups in the United Kingdom, as well as part of his Conservative Party, that this is the best deal that they can have from the European Union in order to exit in an ordinary manner and without going to a no-deal situation. Let's go. So, the backstory. This is part of the previous withdrawal agreement. As I said, when I did this PowerPoint presentation, it was not last week, as you understand. This is not currently in the withdrawal agreement. The idea, you might hear it while I'm talking about the backstop, is because you might have seen it in some of the newspapers. So the idea here is that Ireland, as you understand, we have Northern Ireland here, that is the part of the United Kingdom, right? And we have the Republic of Ireland here. And for many years, because of altogether being part, both of them being part of the single European market, there were no customs, there were no tariffs, there were no border controls. Right? But if the UK decides, and because of the UK is deciding to leave the European Union, it means that you have to reinstate border controls here. And this has created lots of problems. Firstly, because it was thought that it can jeopardize security issues in Ireland, and specifically the Good Friday Agreement that was about securing Northern Ireland, and also it has to do with IRA, it has to do about fight against terrorism in Northern Ireland, etc., etc. And the idea in the withdrawal agreement is that they would still be able to have Northern Ireland as part of the customs union, right? As part of the single European market, which was an idea that was not accepted by the British government, the Conservatives, and especially the DUP, that is the minor ally in the coalition government, right? because the Democratic Unionist Party, they said that in this case, it would stay within the single European market, would bring them away from the rest of the United Kingdom. And as I mentioned before, they really want for Northern Ireland to stay within the nation state of the United Kingdom. Okay. So, but as you see, now it's out of the question. The idea here is to have, it's called establishing customs on the Irish Sea. So in a way they managed, and we still have to know the details about the political game, how they managed to convince the Irish Prime Minister about having this, but well, we'll see how it works. Because that will mean customs also for the Republic of Ireland. Let's move on. So, back to the referendum. I'm going back and forth, but I'm explaining different aspects, right? So now I'm going more to the political scenario. We talked about the historical perspective of what has been happening in Brexit. Now I'm going to talk more about the political scenarios and about the politics that were played. And my analysis will be more political and less historiographical. So the 2016 EU membership referendum, these are photos from the campaign. On the one side you can see Nigel Farage, that is, who was, in a way still is, the main Eurosceptic voice of British politics. I mean, his party, the United Kingdom Independence Party, UKIP, was always against the idea of further integration of the United Kingdom with the European Union, right? They were actually one of the forces that they were really pushing for the Brexit referendum as well. And it's also interesting, so we have two campaigns, public and political at the same time. The campaign Leave and the campaign Remain, right? So they were active for about 6 months, right? So David Cameron, the predecessor of Theresa May, announced the referendum about the UK's membership in the European Union would take place, and then we had 6 months of electoral campaigning in the United Kingdom. And really, there were lots of marches, there was lots of politics, and there was lots of politicization of British citizens. It's probably the first time that you see lots of British people actually learning things about the European Union. And actually, I'm one of the few that they have done some research on this topic as well. So, the slogans are interesting. We want our country back. So, the main issues projected by the Leave campaign was national sovereignty, take back control of our country, as well as immigration. Right? Whereas the Remain campaign was the idea that we do not know how things are going to play out for the British economy in the future. We should be, so it was a bit more modest also when it comes to the way that they put forward their arguments, and sometimes more reasonable and less emotional compared to the Leave campaign. But still, as you see, Remain sane, and this is an interesting photo of Nigel Farage being represented as Adolf Hitler. Okay? So, yes, let's go. So, there are, I think every single colleague of mine that works on legal politics has written about Brexit. So far, Sarah Hobart from London School of Economics, she actually wrote a quite interesting influential article and easy to read about the Brexit referendum. Then she argued, and quite convincingly, that it has been the result of British parties and politics, and it was a lot about the disagreements and the different fractions within the United Kingdom's Conservative Party. David Cameron, that was the predecessor of Theresa May, he was facing lots of objections, he was facing lots of problems, lots of resistance about the United Kingdom's position in the European Union within his party, the Conservatives of the United Kingdom. So, and they were also fear that the Conservatives would lose voters to the United Kingdom Independence Party. That was started gaining momentum. As I mentioned, there were two campaigns, Britain Stronger in Europe, and the other Vote Leave, the Leave campaign. They were both rallying on economy versus immigration. The economic incentive and the economic arguments was the cornerstone of the Remain campaign, whereas the immigration and the question of sovereignty as well was the cornerstone of the Leave. So the Brexit, the referendum took place in June 2016 with a high turnout. 72.21% of British citizens eligible to vote actually voted. The lead was 51.89 and the Remain 48.11. Poll has shown that voters' behavior was affected by socio-demographic position. Better off citizens voted to remain. Young people voted to remain as well. Also identity considerations, people that would consider themselves European and British voted to remain. And there was also an opinion on the European Union. There was no second order effect. What we see, and I think this is interesting to know, is that we have a look at the Brexit referendum. They portray a deeply divided country. And let's go on. I'm going to rush up a bit because I don't want to hemorrhage any more of my audience. So, now, I mentioned no deal Brexit, okay? Simon Hicks, also another colleague from London School of Economics, he talks about the Brexit negotiations and potential outcomes. So, the soft Brexit would be for the United Kingdom to remain in the single European market, okay? But to leave from the European Union, and especially when it comes to its more political policies. The hard Brexit would be to leave the single European market and to sign afterwards a new free trade agreement. And the no-deal Brexit would be that the UK would crash out from the European Union with no deal, which means that then the United Kingdom and the European Union would trade with each other based on World Trade Organization rules. Okay? Right now, we are between hard Brexit and no-deal Brexit. If you had asked me in 2018 or 2017, I would say that we would be between soft Brexit and hard Brexit. Now we are between hard Brexit and no-deal. This is where we stand. And the most likely outcome, there is an interesting analysis in this article, and it was a quantitative analysis that Simon Hicks is actually drawing here, that there is, and he's using game theory actually, that a basic free trade agreement is the most likely outcome. Goods, but not services. So that the European Union and the United Kingdom, they will agree on a trade deal that refers to goods, but it would not include services, right? Protecting the banking sector and the educational sector of the United Kingdom. Let's move on to the next slide and talk about the impact of Brexit. And this is the last part of my presentation. First, on the European Union and its member states, the European Union loses a member state and it becomes smaller. It loses a political military power, as I mentioned before, and thus it becomes weaker. It will have, and there's research on that the researchers have projected the impact on GDP growth of the member state after Brexit, and it's in all cases negative. So it will impact on the prosperity of the member states. And it will also affect the public image of the European Union, also worldwide. It's a different thing to be 28, it's different to be 27. So it's the very first experience of the European Union becoming smaller. It is always becoming bigger, or we would deepen integration. So this is a backslide when it comes to the project of European integration. And we lose the intermediary link with the United States of America. Well, this is debatable when it comes to the current US public administration. I think that we lost it anyway because of the current US public administration, and at least for the time being. And the idea of domino effect, that the experience of the United Kingdom might trigger other member states to apply to exit the European Union. Okay? So let's go to the next slide and look at the impact of Brexit on the United Kingdom. They have to pay the bill. You divorce the European Union, you pay the European Union. This is how it goes, because they have made specific obligations, they have made specific promises when it comes to it's going to very soon. Within the multi-annual financial framework, the budget of the EU, they have to pay this, okay? And there will be a negative impact on the country's GDP, and there has always been the British pound, the next day after the British referendum, lost 30% of its value. Exactly. It wasn't a good idea to have your savings in a British bank account. Don't get me started. Okay, so and at the same time, it's a different thing to be you in a globalized world, the United Kingdom, and it's a different thing to be a bloc of 28 member states, developed countries in a globalized world. So this is the argument of Little Britain. How much can you affect global politics? How much of the voice can you have on issues of global governance all by yourself? A good idea is the climate change issues and the climate change agreements, right? There you can see, because the European Union is pioneering and they're really heading when it comes to climate change and global environmental governance issues. And at the same time, there is this fear of political isolation from the rest of the European continent, and what we see is also the polarization of the British society. Right? So we see people being divided. I mean, we see that on the news every day. The political dialogue is not that civilized anymore. Also. And at the same time, I mentioned about the referendum, but I didn't say that there were differences between the devolved governments. Scotland voted 67% to remain in the European Union. And they had already decided once, they already had once a referendum to become an independent nation state. We do not know how this is going to play out when it comes to the unity of the United Kingdom in the future. Okay, next slide. And now you will see, this is in a way time series, and it shows the impact of Brexit, the real growth in the United Kingdom and the euro area. The blue line is the United Kingdom, the red line is the rest of the European Union, and as you see, it started in a reverse manner, but now that the growth rates of the European Union, I need to bring out the glasses. Okay. Yeah. So what you see here is that the United Kingdom, the impact actually on its growth is bigger compared to the rest of the European Union. Next slide. Question, and it's a yes or no question. Can the United Kingdom at the moment sign a trade agreement with Mexico outside the EU context? Who says yes? Raise your hands. If you believe the answer to this question is yes, don't be shy. Who says no? Good. No. Good. It cannot. Why? Because the EU trades as a bloc. International trade agreements are not with the competence of the member states. They are agreed by the EU Commission, and more specifically, DG Trade of the EU Commission. So if the United Kingdom wants to negotiate a bilateral trade agreement with Mexico, firstly they have to exit from the European Union, and then they can sign a trade agreement. Push them, guys, push them to their limits. Go on, next slide. And now we talk about, because the idea in the presentation, we talked about worldwide implications of Brexit, and I was trying to think what would be the worldwide implications. So there is this kind of interesting idea that they would like right now to revive the British Commonwealth. This is the idea of some interesting conservative members like Chris Moore, for example, in the British Parliament. It's not an easy thing to do, and we have to take into consideration that trading with other countries of the British Commonwealth is not that easy. France is on the other side of the channel. Pakistan is in another continent. So think about shipping costs. Okay, when you trade, shipping costs are important. And at the same time, talking about the European Union, it is a factor of instability in the whole Brexit story. So it has created instability in the European Union. So, and we see that in an era of global financial interdependence, this is going, if the European Union is unstable, this means that it can actually create instability in the financial market worldwide. So think about Dow Jones, think about DAX, think about Nikkei, the stock market indicators, and how they're going to react to generalized instability of the European Union. Okay? Plummeting. So, and this is a question for you to get back to your back home, and also to write a thesis or a dissertation if you want to read for a PhD. Come to XJTLU and write it with me. As member of the European Union and at the same time the United Kingdom all by itself, what would that mean? What would be a potential effect on the multilateral international order and questions of global governance? I think that is it for the day. You have got lots of interesting thoughts to work with, and if there are any questions, by all means.
Thank you, Professor, for your fantastic conference. Really, well, I enjoy so much. Not only for your knowledge of the issue, but for the enthusiastic, provocative, and I don't know, well, anyway, I'm going to say something very personal. Well, my congratulations for your style of teaching. I learned so much about you, about that. And well, the next Oscar Khan is going to, I give the microphone to him for conduct some asking of you directly.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time because you're coming all the way from China, and like these kinds of presentations are very important in our, well, in international relations. And now we go into questions. So we're going to do blocks of 3 questions. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand and they will give you a microphone.
Okay, so what are the actual possibilities of Scotland becoming independent and being recognized by the international community, or even allowing the EU, in a worst-case Brexit scenario, being part or no deal? Will this cause a domino effect in Wales or Northern Ireland?
Anybody else?
Don't be shy.
You want to go to Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University?
Thank you for your presentation. Well, when you say the question for if the UK at the moment with Mexico will sign our agreement, if we were thinking yes or not. But I wanted to make a question, for example, with Chile, for example, with Spain. Spain is a part of the European Union, but Spain has like a kind of agreement with Chile. It's traded with the Schengen area that has like, I don't know, like 60 days or 90 days from the Chilean population can walk or can go through all the European Union or all the states that signed it. My question here is like the link between Mexico and the United Kingdom after this like important decision, and what will be the future between those 2 countries? The future of these agreements, if it's in this case there is like a future here. Thank you.
One more?
Okay, so first of all, it was a really interesting presentation. And as you mentioned before, the UK can't make a deal with Mexico right now. But if it was possible, what would see in Mexico? What would be the interest for the UK to negotiate with Mexico a new trade agreement? Thank you.
Okay, firstly about United Kingdom's independence and unity, about Scotland. So the idea is here we have the first independence referendum in Scotland, and the Scottish people voted to stay in the United Kingdom. And they were given promises on behalf of the Conservative government in London that the United Kingdom is going to remain in the UK. So now Nicola Sturgeon, the Prime Minister of the devolved minister, it's First Minister, that's the right term. The devolved First Minister of Scotland, she has said that they will initiate the procedure of having a second referendum about independence. In this case, it's a big procedure, and we have to take into consideration how it's going to work out with London. If we have first the United Kingdom being outside the European Union, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, we have an independent Scotland, then Scotland can actually apply for becoming a member state of the European Union. Right? But that doesn't mean it needs to fulfill specific criteria for membership, whether they know them as the Tampere criteria with specific GDP rates, and other issues. I'm not going, it's not a topic that needs to fulfill specific criteria. Then you open negotiations with any state, any member state that is interested in becoming a member state of the European Union. It needs to open negotiations with the European Union, specifically DG Enlargement of the EU Commission. And we open chapters in negotiation. There are 25 chapters. Then you close them each by each, and you become a full member state of the European Union. This can be a process that can take about 20 years. In the case of Turkey, it's more than 20 years. And Turkey has managed to close 3 chapters, if I'm not mistaken, of the 25 of the negotiations. These things should take time. I cannot predict the results because I'm not a journalist. Political scientists and social scientists like us and you, we are founding our inferences on research, right? So this is the only thing that I can say. When it comes to the Schengen Agreement, and then the Schengen Agreement, into what you actually mentioned, is a different, it's not a trade agreement. It has to do with citizenship issues, right? These 19, and visa issues. You're talking about visa issues, it's a different thing. So when it comes to an international trade agreement, still they are pretty much run by the Commission. This doesn't mean that the Commission doesn't consult with the member states. Of course it does. It needs their feedback when they are trying to put together an international trade agreement, right? But when it comes to these visa issues, this is an issue that is not decided by the EU institutions, but still by the member states. So it's a very gray area there, because we have the common migration policy, but then there is no common visa policy. There is no one standardized procedure when it comes to these issues. This idea of the 90-day Schengen visa is given to, and it is recognized in a different way by the member states. Plus, for the UK, because it's not part of the Schengen agreement, it's totally different. So, and the third idea about the United Kingdom's new trade agreement, if I get correctly, you're asking me why would the United Kingdom be interested in signing a trade agreement with Mexico? And I would just be very cynical. Tequila and avocados. We have to take into consideration this. For example, alcohol is a luxury product that can be burdened with lots of additional taxes, right? Right now, when it comes to imports of tequila in the European Union, there is an agreement between Mexico, an international trade agreement that was very preferential for the EU because it was the stronger trade partner. In the case of the United Kingdom and Mexico, this is not the case. And I really much believe that in the future, tequila in Mexico will be more expensive compared to tequila in Paris. Tequila in London will be more expensive compared to a bottle of tequila in Paris. And it's not only that. Think about it, change of programs, if you want to. So now, for example, when it comes to exchange students, the European Union, the whole European Union will have the Erasmus exchange program. Right? In the case when the United Kingdom becomes an independent member state, it needs to renegotiate all its education programs. Because right now they are covered by the Erasmus program. So, as I said, there are lots of interest, and because we are in this globalized world, and globalization has become something that means everything and nothing, unfortunately. But we see that countries trade with each other. They trade a lot. And what happens also is, and let's not, I think there are colleagues here that they can, like Ernesto, that they can talk about international political economy, flow of capitals, FDIs, for example, on behalf of the British financial sectors to Mexico. So it's a big discussion.
Any other questions?
First of all, I want to say thank you for coming here. And you mentioned that in 2018 the Brexit will be either hard or soft, but now it's more likely to be a hard Brexit or a no deal. So what made this situation to change?
The political landscape. So let me firstly say that the negotiating line on behalf of the European Union has not changed. It's the British domestic politics that change. And this actually moves the choices of the British government from soft to harder Brexit. Theresa May, as a Prime Minister, was, before the referendum, was openly campaigning in favor of staying in the European Union. And it seems that she really tried for a softer Brexit at some point. It was not easy to deal with the delicate balances within the party of the Conservatives in the Union. And then she lost seats because of the general elections. She actually thought that the general elections would actually increase her power and her negotiating power in the British Parliament to secure a vote in favor of the withdrawal agreement. That wasn't the case. On the contrary, she got dependent on the minor partner in the coalition government, the DUP party, the Independent Unionist Party of Northern Ireland, that they were really adamant that they would not accept an agreement that would not secure Northern Ireland as a full member state, full part, region of the United Kingdom. And the story is repeated now. The difference is that Boris Johnson comes from this fraction of the Conservative Party that were traditionally in favor of a hard Brexit. Right? They want it out and as quickly as possible. Right? And we see that now. For example, he wasn't happy what happened on Monday when he was obliged by the Parliament to send the letter to ask for the extension of Article 50 until the end of 2019. He accompanied this with a personal letter to the European Council saying that he doesn't agree with this extension. So it's not only domestic politics, it's partisan politics and how they play out with the whole Brexit phenomenon and event.
Well, I don't know if any of you have any other questions. Also, apart from the topic of the conference, if any one of you have any questions about the Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University, also Professor Evangelos will be very happy to answer. As we said before, this university is located in Suzhou, in the north part or eastern part of northern Shanghai.
Close to Shanghai.
Close to Shanghai. And also, even I want to make note that today one of our students, Alejandro Mejia, has just handed in a research protocol about Brexit. Could you raise your hand, Alejandro? So maybe he will be happy to have a shorter chat with you after the conference for sure. So if any other, anybody else have any other question, guys? So I will ask you a big applause for our presenter. We are really honored to have you here, Evans. Thank you very much.
I would just like to thank you for coming and hearing all my gibberish. I hope that it will make some sense. The only thing that I can say about the topic is just follow the news and pray.